So, yeah, my name's Daniel, and I think I just want to kind of start off by saying, like, regardless of what I may or may not mention today, I don't know if you're here for the actual content of the talk or just because it's nice in here, but regardless of what I do or don't mention, regardless of what you've come through those doors with, whatever kind of state you're in, whatever karma you've brought in, right? At the very least, and in the most immediate, how I'd like to begin is just to emphasize that we're all here. We're all here, right now together. And that might not sound very pithy, right? Because this is the Dharma parlor, right? So we come here to get some wisdom, some juice. But I just kind of want to ground us in this here-ness, right? See if you can receive all of this and all of the festival as you go out afterwards, having your own awareness grounded in this here-ness, in this earthiness, in this bodyfulness, right? Often when, and I see this a lot, either of the, maybe I've given some kind of, this kind of best man speech, or there's birthdays or some kind of gathering, what tends to happen is the energy of the event, right, can kind of generate this parade of togetherness, right? Which is fine, but what often gets missed is the reason why we're here, right? And the reason why we're here is this, to root our awareness in the here-ness of being together, of being in community, of being in Sangha. So regardless of what I may or may not say, regardless of your expectations, regardless of how you've come in here, I encourage you to kind of, allow your awareness to merge, like the Buddha said, like water and milk. Allow your awareness to merge with experience and to be grounded here. So maybe I should start off by kind of saying a little bit about me. So like Joe was saying, I'm the community Dharma leader of Sati Sangha, which is a small kind of multi-lineage, kind of like polyamorous Buddhist Sangha in Portsmouth, in South Sea. And this year we just kind of passed our 9th birthday in May. And we're entirely kind of community run, and I spend my time working as a psychotherapist or working with Lama Rod. And I was kindly invited to come and offer something to your community and to meet your community. And some things about me. Well, I originally come from South Wales. I've been living in Portsmouth for nearly 23 years now. I have a very complex relationship with my lineage, my heritage, my Welsh roots. I kind of broke up with my country at the age of 18. It was really dramatic. And I'm now in the process of kind of repairing that rupture. Not out of choice, actually. Not out of choice. It's just where my practice and I guess you could say my ancestors are kind of calling me in. And as much as I try to ignore them, they won't fuck off. So I am now repairing this rupture, but I'm doing that through the land because the complexity for me as a queer person, the complexity for me with Welsh, particularly Welsh white culture, is the kind of social culture there and the complexity of people and the history and the kind of unprocessed trauma of that part of these British Isles. So my way in is with the land, and that's just kind of where I'm at the moment. And I love sitting down. I fucking love sitting down. So I'm really pleased to be doing this sit down. I'm a father, single father, and my greatest teacher is my 8-year-old son. He's not with me here. His name's Oshan. And he's very lucky that he gets to depart his wisdom onto me every week. I think... I kind of came through, my doorway into Dharma was addiction, about 19 years ago. So I'm about 19 years into practice, and yeah, very dramatic drug addiction, hit rock bottoms, blah, 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 blah. And then probably spent the first 7 years of my practice unintentionally using Dharma as therapy. And then when I probably hit around the decade, that's when I started to understand what the fuck this was all about. And was kind of mildly addicted to the Dharma, right? So I'm happy to replace one with the other. So that's me. How I want to begin this talk, or this kind of, I don't know what this is, a workshop or Dharma talk, but we'll see what happens, is I would like to put you into, okay, maths is not my strong point, so I'm going to put you into triads, so threes. The invitation is here to go into a triad with someone you don't know. Okay, that might mean having to get up and move. Apologies, you're probably quite comfortable now. And in fact, let's do that now, and I'll give you the instructions of what we're going to do. It'll just be 5 minutes. I'll have a little scan round. Just briefly introduce yourself to your triad, your name. Does anyone not have a triad? Okay, we've got a 2 over there. Anyone who want, and then a 2 there. Okay, or you got a 3 now. Okay, you guys might have to be, oh no, there's your 3rd. Or maybe you can stay as a pair. There you go. You just get longer to talk, so that's fine. Okay, so the instruction here, and I'm just mindful I don't have a bell, so you guys are going to have to be really well behaved. Because if you start talking, I've got nothing to hit to grab your attention. So the invitation here is to spend 5 minutes. You guys will be monitoring your own time on how many people, how long someone talks for. Check in if someone even wants to talk, right, if you want to do this. But I want you to just share the last animal, the last non-human being that you had an encounter with before arriving in this space, okay? May have been something you saw, maybe something you touched, maybe something you heard. And yeah, just give a little story about that, and you've got 5 minutes. The person with the longest hair will go first. So what I want to do now is just spend a moment. I want you to do a popcorn. I just want you to shout out some of the animals that were evoked in your space, just randomly. If you shout over somebody, it's fine.
Cat. Bee. Salmon.
Nice. Did someone say beetle? Weasel. Nice. Okay, a moth. Anyone else? Bird. Which kind of bird? Oh. Beautiful. Anyone got a tick? Got you. Do you want to share it?
Yeah, because somebody said not put tea tree on it. I put a little circle around it. Put a piece of tea tree on it last night. Went in the morning, got an empty circle.
Beautiful. There you go.
It's a non-violent way of relating.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So the reason why I do that, right, and I do that at Sangha sometimes, is if you imagine, and you heard all the creatures, right, if you imagine all the kind of critters that you just evoked in the space, right, what we've done is we've kind of created this shared ecology of being, right, which is always here, but when we think or speak of ecology, right, we tend to exclude ourselves from that system of thought, right, so right now we have all these creatures, these non-human beings, these insects with us, evoked by us, right? To create this kind of psycho-spiritual ecology of coming together, of gathering. And I just want to emphasize that here at the top, because I'll return to that later on. That we're not separate from, we are part of this shared ecology. So how I kind of thought about talking about what I wanted to talk about is I'm like the Mark Kermode of children movies right now, because we have Film Friday every week, and me and my son, and we went to the cinema a while ago. I'm not going to spoil the film by naming the film, because I'm going to talk about the film in case some of you haven't seen it. But there was a particular film, and it was very moving, saying that I do cry at anything at the moment, but it was a beautiful animated film. And it got me thinking about this teaching, right, this Paticca Samuppada teaching, and I wanted to kind of bring in some kind of queer, or kind of take something that we know so well and then queer that idea to kind of highlight this kind of Paticca Samuppada. Because for me, I think sometimes the Dharma is not meant to be this. It's not meant to be an abstraction. It's not meant to be dry. It's not meant to be this kind of nebulous idea, right? It's the Dharma is queer. It disrupts. It wakes us up, right? So when I sometimes hear certain teachings, it feels too dusty to me, and I like to think of ways that can kind of provoke my interest, and hopefully if it's provoked my interest, it might it might provoke yours, or you might be offended. We don't know. We'll see. So if I was to ask you one thing, I'm not going to do this because this would take forever, but if I was to ask, this is rhetorical, if I was to ask you one thing, which one cultural phenomena, right, which feels unhelpful, unhealthy, non-conducive to wholeness, whatever language you want to use, right? Happiness, togetherness, freedom, whatever. My sense is that no one would struggle to think of something, right? And actually, if we did go around the room, it would probably be really depressing, right? So I'm going to kind of come in and take that opportunity of depression away and just choose one. And it's definitely, like, it's not a new one. But it's definitely as pervasive. And that's the one of what's named as narcissism. Or within my psychological modality, I would name it as narcissistic phenomena, right? As opposed to narcissism. It kind of makes it very solid, unchangeable. So I like to I understand these things as phenomena, right? In that we all, in this room, can possess and can exhibit phenomena of narcissism. Doesn't mean we're narcissistic or we're a narcissist. It's just a phenomena, right? But it hasn't gone anywhere, but it's kind of gone under this renaissance, if you like, of late. Facilitated and fed by another cultural phenomenon that you're probably all familiar with, social media, right? And narcissism being this kind of fixation on oneself. Or that we've kind of fallen in love with this kind of projection of ourselves, right? The story of who we are, or the avatars that we wish to be known by, right? Via our grids. And some of you might be reminded of this myth, right, or this story of Narcissus, right, and how social media is probably a very tangible context to this modern version of the myth. So the classic myth of Narcissus is that he falls in love with his own reflection and then eventually drowns in the water where he sees his reflection. Now we all invest time and energy in varying degrees, right, into this sense of ourselves in the world. And also we're also invested in how this is then perceived by other people, right? This image of ourselves and how it's perceived is what I will be referring to as our form, right? And really depending on our identity locations and the context we might find ourselves in, people from marginalized communities, marginalized identities will be really, really familiar with this, that we kind of we might have more than one form, or our forms might be kind of more fluid than others, depending on the context we find ourselves in, right? For needs of safety, for needs of security, for needs of whatever it is. And like I said, the reason we do this is just as varied as the many ways we may present a form to the world, right? But regardless of where you find yourself on this spectrum, right, it feels to me that more and more of us are investing less and less into and moving further and further away from the awareness or the presence of the form, right? There is nothing wrong with having a form, okay? But the problems, the incongruences that develop is when our attention or our investment is solely dependent and reliant upon a form being a particular way. And when that happens is the awareness of the form, within the form, presence, just becomes less important, right? And also relatively new, is not only social media but the algorithms, right, that encourage this kind of reward matrix kind of loop of how we present the form, right? I present the form this way, I get some rewards, right? I get 1 million likes or shares or whatever it is, and this kind of reward matrix is just slowly being baked into our systems every day. And if you want to know more about that, you can read The Shallows, I think, by Nicholas Carr. And there's another recent book around attention economy, I think. I don't know what its name is now. But this kind of seductive pleasure-reward system, we're just simply not evolved to deal with it yet, right? The tech is more advanced than the software that's being plugged into, and the software is us, right? One of my teachers once likened it to saying it's like a chimpanzee with a remote control that's stuck on really loud with just as many channels as you want, right? And we're kind of just a little bit out of control. So what this has meant, right? Why am I talking about this? Well, what this has meant for some of us is that we're either two things, mindlessly or perhaps maybe explicitly prioritizing just the form, like I said, but also the story of the form, right? And how the story is perceived. And the more these social media platforms create narratives of the form, which are reels, right? Movies, TikTok, whatever it is, that becomes more and more true. And as a result, more of us are living in an enhanced, disembodied way, right? Because of this infinitely refreshable kind of Black Mirror culture that we now have. And what this does is it interrupts the connections with our bodies, right? Someone touch the mic. And gradually and slowly increases feelings of isolation, even though we're more connected than we've ever been before. And as a psychotherapist, I see this a lot. Right? We've become, and this is why things like this, and I mean specifically like this, not just any festival, but festivals like this that center presence and alongside form, right? And communitarianism is that we become less communitarian. Communion has become like the poor cousin of connection. I want to be connected, I want to have connection. But actually communion, right, communing together is just as important. So what happens is collectively, our capacity for collective thinking, for collective feeling, for felt sensing just becomes eroded, right? And we become easily more distracted. And the conversations, because we have this story of ourselves, we have the form of ourselves that we're so invested in, we're hooked into, and the stories of other people and the forms of other people, is that we slowly become this, we slowly start developing this kind of monologic kind of person or kind of entity, right? So we start having less dialogical conversations with other people, and we end up just having like monological conversations with ourselves because we're just interested in the story of ourselves, how that's perceived, what's the reward for that? Oh, I didn't get much reward for that, I need to change that. And we just become this kind of loop of the story of ourselves, which doesn't exist, right? This isn't real, right? Try and sit down and have a conversation, a real conversation with just yourself. It's boring, right? There's not one person in this field. Boring, right? There's hundreds, possibly even thousands of people. Dialogical, communitarian, communing, right? But because we get trapped in this monological loop, we become less attuned to and less aware of and responsive to just the complexities that exist between us, right? The constant change, in Nietzsche, the constant changing nature of our immediate ecosystems. So I managed to find somewhere where I could get internet about an hour ago. And I wanted to find a definition of what an ecosystem was, because I realized I hadn't got one. So I've written it down. So an ecosystem, right, is understood as a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. A biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment, or a complex interconnected system. Oxford Dictionary, there's Dharma in there. I think actually this wasn't the Oxford Dictionary, it was Wikipedia maybe, but either way you look at it, right, it's a great description for the thusness, right, of this world that we've become distracted from and keeps getting us distracted from, right? And if you want to push this this metaphor of ecology further, right? When we become monological, right, and we're just talking to ourselves, to the story of ourselves, to the idea, the avatars of ourselves, the form, we become less resilient. If that then, and I think it is now, becoming the dominant strain of how we are, the dominant strain of being, right? And the ecosystem just like inevitably degrades. A bit like, what's it called, monoculturing or monocropping, right? So I drive between Portsmouth and Oxford a lot, and there's just acres of rapeseed oil, right? Just one crop, one culture, right? Or palm oil, right, in the Amazon. I think Vedana Shiva talks about this, right? That the richness of our, not this particular, but talks about it in the context of soil, the richness of our social, spiritual constellations, right, fades and fades and fades, and less grows out of the soil between us, and the soil just becomes dust. When you grow one crop, the soil just becomes malnourished. And we're becoming more malnourished because all we do is talk more and more and more to the ideas of ourselves. But I gave out yellow roses, right? So there's hope. Okay? So what if we queered this idea of narcissism for a moment? Specifically the myth of Narcissus, right? And I use queering here as a verb, right? In the sense of kind of disturbing and making the solid unstable, right? Which is what the Dharma does. It kind of disturbs us awake. It's disturbing. Not in the sense of like a horror film that's disturbing, but like waking up a bear disturbing, okay? It might be the other one. I don't know where you get your Dharma from, but just in the same way that like queer people and queer bodies really unsettle, and complicate kind of normative practices around gender and sexuality, right? In the same way, I invite you to extend this understanding of queering to unhinge the assumptions around how we relate to each other in the ways that I've just described. And then how might we queer our popular understanding of this myth in order to make change, in order to act in ways that disrupt and reject the norms of what it means to be a narcissus, or to participate in the Narcissystem. I coined that, you can't take that. Okay? If you do, you need to reference me. Referencing is a feminist act, you've got to do that. But in the spirit of collective and individual liberation, right? Just reminded me actually, where ecosystems kind of merge, when one ecosystem merges onto another, right? A bit like the bridge between the owl, what field is this called? The Rains field. Rings field. So the Rings field and the owl field, there's like a merging point, right? And when ecosystems merge, they call that the ecotone. And it just so happens that at every ecotone, there's more abundance of life, there's more richness, and more diversity than in any other ecosystem where they merge. So if you hang out there, you might get to, I don't know, hear some other ideas, hear some other thoughts. I arrived at night yesterday and just came here. I was like, that is not my space. That is not my space. Been over there today, right? Just notice how we kind of protect and pull back from something we might not understand. But what would it mean, right, to queer this idea of Narcissus? And what would it mean for this kind of mass migration away from each other, from ourselves? So Sophie Strand talks about this a lot. I don't know if you know Sophie Strand. She's a philosopher. But what if we, or if we are Narcissus, right? Upon seeing ourselves, or upon seeing himself reflected in the water, also included the pondweed, right? The lilies, the insects, the animals who come to drink of the water, right? The sounds of the amphibious creatures there, right? The sunlight just on the top of the water, all the shit at the bottom of the pond, right? In a way, we want to see ourselves reflected over and over again in these things. You could actually argue we actually need to, and the reason why we're in this climate crisis right now is because we have not seen enough of ourselves reflected in the ecosystems around us. We need more Narcissus, but queering it to include everything. Now, I didn't just come up with this, right? This is the Paticca this is the teaching, right? The Buddha offers us to just practice time and time again. We cannot exist. We do not exist outside or in a vacuum of. We're surrounded by and part of, as I said at the top of this, we are part of the ecosystem. So even if you walk out of this tent, you are encountered with an opportunity to see yourself reflected back in the grass, in the ground, in the trees, in the people, in the air. So back to this film, right? I'm so tempted to name it because I'd ruin it for you, but I'm not that cruel. So there was this point in this film, it was at the end, and this is why I'm not going to name it, because it's the end, it's the giveaway, right? So at the point in this film, there's a stage where the main characters of the film go on this epic journey to save their civilization, right? They leave everything behind. They leave their community, they leave their homeland, everything that they wish to save, family, and there's like a small group of them. And there's one point where there's two characters, a son and his estranged father. And that's when I started to cry, obviously, right? But they find themselves at some point in the film staring speechless at this huge, giant eye. Right? It's so big that it makes them look like ants staring at a football, right? And this I belongs to this enormous, gentle beast, which up until this moment in the film, they thought was just the land their entire society and their whole world, Saturn, existed upon. Right, it's a really sweet moment of the film, because as these characters stare in silence together upon this huge iris, right, they then see themselves reflected back in the blackness of this eye. You know, and they don't just see themselves, they see themselves in the mirror of the biology of this creature. The eye becomes this mirror, right, whose whole body is an entire ecosystem which they both rely upon, and when they realize they are part of. Right? And the story ends with the characters realizing the ways in which they've been living is harming the beast, or destroying their own home. So if we queered this idea of a Narcissus, right, in a way to invite more Narcissus into our lives and push what we understand as the Narcissystem away, right? So the Narcissystem is a product of kind of white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal kind of mega monolith, right, of you, and you matter, and only you matter. If we just push that system away, but bring in the Narcissus a bit more, right? I wonder, I invite you to just feel, what might we move in closer proximity to what the teachings of Paticca Samuppada invite us to taste and explore, right? Paticca Samuppada being this, for the professional Buddhists in the room, who aren't the professional Buddhists in the room, this kind of dependent origination, right? A very short synopsis. I'm not a scholar, so I'm not going to get into that, but a short synopsis of what Paticca Samuppada might actually mean in the current context is the Leela Watson quote, right? That my liberation is bound up with yours. That's all that means. My liberation doesn't exist without yours. Because nothing has an independent, permanent, or absolute separate existence. Nothing. Everything is part of this kind of limitless web of interconnections that are constantly undergoing this process of transformation, much like an ecosystem. The fact we don't see ourselves reflected back in this world is the fucking problem. And I think Dharma scenes, Dharma industries, Dharma spaces can be a little bit culpable in that too. I remember when I began practice 20 years ago, whatever it was, you know, I was given instruction, close my eyes, meditate. It's all about me. It's all about me and my world and my interiority, right? That's not what the Dharma is. That's not what the Buddha taught. Al-Nur Ladha is, I think, a Sufi mystic. He's incredibly attractive, and I love everything he says, because I have to look at his face when I hear him say it. But he says, we think we can achieve some form of meaningful spiritual enlightenment and spiritual liberation outside of understanding the collective context that we live, right? That until we awaken to the context we are in, ecosystem, connected, Paticca Samuppada, right? These spiritual freedoms are just muted. I think that's part. Sorry, they're resting. I'm really pleased to hear they're resting. I think that's part of what the wellness industry kind of perpetuates intentionally, unintentionally, I don't really care. But that it misses, like I go to yoga, right? I come from Portsmouth. It's one of the most overpopulated cities in Europe. And it's the only city, waterfront city, island city in the country, actually. And the abundance of yoga there, the kind of the options of doing yoga there is limited, right? So I go to this place because it's cheap and I like the yoga there, but it's called Lano, right? Look after number one. Yeah. I think it's an unfortunate accident, I think. But at the start of this talk, I was like, if we were to go around and everyone was to choose something they didn't like and thought was in the way of getting free, right? We could have chosen anything. And even this, right, that's kind of like a bit of a trick, right? Because no amount of moving the deck chairs on the political behemoth that we don't like is going to really solve anything. Because the dominant isness, the dominant ontological view of the world now is informed by this chronic separatism. Professional Buddhists in the room know that as dualism, right? And it's had an impact right from the beginning of it's in our social diet, so it makes sense, right? But this separatism is extended to the body and our experiences of the mind and our experiences of our ecosystem, our habitat. And then if you throw in, like you're making a cake, and you throw in a bit of materialistic culture, right, or kind of rationalist culture, or anthropic culture, right? Anthropic being like centering us in everything we do. Rationalism being if I can't see it or measure it, it doesn't exist, right? Materialism being I like that over there, I'm going to take that. You throw them in, what you bake is this kind of view on the world, our gaze that's cast upon the world in a very particular way, which is what makes Dharma practice so essential right now. My friend and teacher, I don't know if I think there's some people in here who are familiar with him, Lama Rodo, and so maybe have sat with him, becoming more and more explicit as we become more and more embroiled in this apocalypse, right? We haven't got time to waste. We haven't got time. You could say, I think it's William James, old white guy from America, philosopher, said, what is the moral equivalent of war? We've created all these technologies, these strategies, these industries to annihilate each other. What would be the moral equivalent of war? And if you could take that essence, the spirit of that equivalence, into our practice, you will not wake up without getting on the cushion and embodying bhavana, metta, whatever it is you practice, because you realize, just as important as brushing your teeth this morning, I hope you brushed your teeth this morning, and eating is essential. We haven't got time to fuck around, which is essentially what the Buddha said. If we queer this myth of Narcissus, what it does is it opens us out, right? It opens us away and opens us up to the possibilities of an alternative isness, an alternative ontological view, right? And we start seeing more of ourselves in everything. For example, right, this bell, right, or this laptop, right? I can see these things as separate inanimate objects, which I can manipulate and move as I wish, right? No relationship to it other than it's here to benefit me. or I can lean into and explore and experiment with how I can see these things, right? The metal, right? All the pieces that make up my laptop, or this wooden sign here, as a collection, right, of organic matter, right? As the rain which fed the tree, the soil it was rooted into, the clouds that provided the rain, all the rotten bodies, both animal and human, that manured and decomposed and kind of fed the tree. All the microbes of those bodies and the mud, right, all generated that wooden sign, which eventually, like us, will rot and break down and disperse and form countless other things in countless other directions, right? Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this in a beautiful way. So I'm going to read to you now something from the Heart Sutra that he wrote, where he talks about exactly what I've just said, the sign, but in Thich Nhat Hanh style. So it's going to be good, right? Are you all sitting comfortably? Okay, great. One autumn day, I was in a park, absorbed in the contemplation of a small but beautiful leaf in the shape of a heart. Its color was almost red and was barely hanging on the branch, ready to fall down. I spent a long time with it. I asked this leaf lots of questions. I found out the leaf had been a mother to the tree. Usually, we think that the tree is the mother and the leaves are just children. But as I looked at the leaf, I saw that the leaf is also a mother of the tree. The sap that the roots take up is only water and minerals, not good enough to nourish the tree. So the tree distributes the sap to the leaves. The leaves take the responsibility of transforming that rough sap into refined sap, and with the help of the sun and gas, sending it back in order to nourish the tree. Therefore, the leaves are also the mother to the tree. And since the leaf is linked to the tree by a stem, the communication between them is easy to see. We do not have a stem linking us to our mothers anymore. But when we were in her womb, we had a very long stem, an umbilical cord. The oxygen and the nourishment we needed came to us through that stem. Unfortunately, on the day that we call our birthday, it was cut, and we received the illusion that we are independent. This is a mistake. We continue to rely on our mother for a very long time, and we have several other mothers as well. The earth is one of them. We have a great many stems linking us to our Mother Earth. There is a stem linking us with the cloud. If there is no cloud, there is no water for us to drink. We are made of at least 70% water, and the stem between the cloud and us is really there. This is also the case with the river, the forest, the logger, and the farmer. There are hundreds and thousands of stems linking us to everything in the cosmos, and therefore we can be. Do you see the link between you and me? If you are not there, I am not here. If you do not see it yet, look more deeply, and I'm sure you will. As I said, this is not philosophy. You really have to see it. I asked the leaf whether it was scared because it was autumn and the other leaves were falling. The leaf told me, no. During the whole spring and summer, I was very much alive. I worked hard and helped nourish the tree, and much of me is in this tree. Please do not say that I am just this form, because this leaf form is only part of me. I am the whole tree. I know that I am already inside the tree, and then I go back to the soil. I will continue to nourish the tree. That's why I do not worry. As I leave this branch and float to the ground, I will wave to the tree and tell her, I will see you very soon. So I really want to meditate. So I'm going to like stop talking. But before I do, there'll be a little guided meditation. But, and this is where I see the exodus, maybe, I'd like to do some chanting. Okay. And I say that because I fucking hated chanting. I hated it. And I really hated chanting in English. Still have work to do on that. But in the last 6 or 7 years, I'd say I'd become a bit more polyamorous. Hey, babe. Polyamorous with my practice, right? And yeah, and chanting is here. So what I want to chant is, and some of you may not know the meaning, so I'm just going to, this is traditionally what happens is if you get offered a mantra to practice, it's offered with meaning, it's offered with explanation, so it's kind of a gift of practice to you. And I want to chant at some point in the practice the Gate Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. But I just want to say, if there's anyone who's feeling uncomfortable about chanting, right, I just want to say one thing, is our bodies, and this is what really helped me get over myself, right, with making noise with my body, is our bodies are designed to be instruments, right, to create sounds of all different reasons, right? You could say we are the most naked when we are uncontrollably laughing, when we're ugly sobbing, and when we're orgasming, right? Uncontrollable, naked sounds. You know that kind of laughter where you just literally you're gonna run out of breath, whatever. And I have a really weird sounding laugh, right? When I'm really just being myself, or like sobbing. I'm sure plenty of us in here have uncontrollably sobbed. Right? And that sound, that primordial sound, is not something to be ashamed of. And then there's the orgasm, which I hope many of you have experienced. So, what I've come to notice in my own practice is, particularly with chanting, is we can create a more intuitive feeling, an intuitive felt sense of the interior, right? If you imagine, what I mean by that is, if you imagine, so you compare desire lines with a constructed highway, right? A constructed highway is going this fucking way, and anything in the way is going to get destroyed. It's forceful, right? It's brutal, right? Desire lines, you may see them now, they start appearing in the grass. It's where people feel like going. It's where we just generally tend to go. It looks like a good way to go, and then other people go, that's a good way, and then you start seeing these animals create them in ecosystems, right? Little badgers, and then all the other animals use them because it's a good route, right? It's gentler, it's more natural, it's more organic, and in that way, that's how I understand chanting as a way to kind of touch into the interior rather than being forced there, right? And there's something about repeating words in a particular order that have been repeated thousands of years. Okay. And I come from a tradition of singing, right? I think this is where part of my healing is coming from, with the rupture with my land, with my culture, is singing, right? In particular, choirs, right? Okay, so I'm gonna just explain. So maybe just a caveat. I did say I was not a scholar, all right? This is my interpretation of this mantra. Take it or leave it. It really doesn't matter. But this is how I'm going to be singing it, okay? So gate, gate, Pali means gone. So the first style is pretty simple. Gone, gone. Go, go. Take, go, gone. Paragate means all the way gone, okay? So back when this chant emerged, right, pre-Buddhism, the idea of going as far as you can was getting in a boat and going over the horizon, right? So that is how it was written. It's like, go to the furthest shore. Go as far as you can go. That is the furthest we can conceive. Go as far as you can. Parasamgate, sam means everyone, right? So go as far as you can to the furthest shore. Take everyone with you to the furthest known point and keep going from suffering. Bodhi, big surprise, means like awake, right? Enlightenment, liberation. And svaha means, I understand it as mean like, fuck yeah, right? Like, right on. Like, it's, or amen, or so be it, right? But for me, it's like, fuck yes. Go as far as you can go. Keep going, take everyone with you. Enlightenment, fuck yes. Okay, so that is what we're going to be. That is what we're going to be. If any scholars watching this video, don't bother emailing me. Okay. Knowing you can stop at any point. If you don't understand the words or you can't hear them, you can just hum the melody. It's a very simple melody. Although I was in a band for 10 years, it was not that kind of band, so I keep my melodies simple. Okay, and you can just hum along. All right. And I'll be giving a practice beforehand, and I'll be reading a poem by Alexis Pauline Gumbs around remembering. I think that's what I'm doing. That may be tomorrow, but we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out. Okay, so find yourself a comfortable position, right? It may be a professional Buddhist posture. It may not. I really don't care. As long as you feel supported, stable, bright, awake, relaxed. Lots of paradoxes there. You'll figure it out. The Buddha said once, giving instruction, I think in the Anapanasati's, like, think of it like tuning a lute, right? If the string is too tight, it'll snap. If the string is too loose, it sounds all shitty. The mind gets all foggy, right? So finding the balance between too tight and too soft, and there is where you'll find your practice, okay? If you want to lie down, feel free. That's advanced. That's advanced practice, because you will just fall asleep. But maybe we have some bodhisattvas here, I don't know. And I'm going to ring the bell. It just reminds me of being in school, the dinner bell. Okay, so I'm going to ring the bell. And upon ringing the bell, the invitation, this is all invitational, is to take 3 intentionally deep in-breaths. So we're just activating the favorite phrase of the time, the vagus nerve. We're going to activate that part of the body. Breathe in, hold it slightly longer than you normally would, breathe out. You can do that 3 times, okay? And then allow your breath to find its natural rhythm. Don't pass out. Look after yourself, okay? All right. Breathing in. One more time. Last time. And then as much as you can, allow your breath to find its natural rhythm. So just spend this first part of the practice. I invite you to let go of all expectations, all hopes and dreams of this going a particular way. What does it mean for you right now to just be body sitting, body breathing? And I like to begin these practices by inviting us to notice the weight of the body on the earth. So allowing our awareness to just drop down, sinking down through the body until it reaches the contact points with the earth. I'm just going to hang out there. And what do you notice? Sensations, movement, throbbing, heat. And this is the body. This is the body sitting. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. No person to be right now. And I invite you to privilege the comfort of the body. So just noticing all the ways we might be holding the body to be a particular way right now. Maybe the belly can soften, can expand, the jaws or the face can relax. And just checking how we might dominate our own bodies, right? And some of us for very good reason, that we walk around the world holding the body a particular way for a variety of reasons. And right now, seeing if we can allow the body to take the form that it really wishes it could be. Big belly, soft shoulders, soft jaw, gentle face. As a practice of kindness, letting the floor beneath you come into your mind and really make an intentional remembering that this is the earth beneath you. This is not a floor or a building or a pavement. This is the earth right beneath you right now. And when we recognize the earth, we recognize the earth is there to hold us. So as our awareness touches out to the earth touches us back. And when the earth touches us back, it's loving us. It's recognizing us. For those of you who have been here many times, have you considered if the earth is pleased to see you? It's relieved your back. It's missed you. And it's here to hold you. Just seeing what it would be like right now to relax into being held by the earth. The earth having these qualities of strength, of stability, of solidity, of wisdom, of depth. For some of us, this might be one of the few places or the few things we can trust to hold us. And you can stay here with this practice, or you can continue. I invite you, if you wish, to imagine inviting the energy of the earth, this reliability, this solidity, this strength, up through the contact points with the body, until we become an extension of the earth itself. And when we become an extension of the earth, we have the opportunity to offer the earth all the things that we are struggling to hold ourselves, knowing that the earth is big enough and deep enough and strong enough to hold it all. And the earth takes this willingly. So the in-breath becomes the acknowledgement of the thing we may be struggling to hold, and the out-breath becomes the rest and ease and movement of this passing to the earth. Breathing in, knowing we're held by the earth. Breathing out, offering this difficulty to the earth, and resting and relaxing with that out-breath, knowing the earth can hold it. This is touching the earth. This is Bhumi Sparsha practice. Continuing like this for a little bit longer. Again, we can move a little bit deeper if you wish. I now invite you to take the breath to the area around the heart. So breathing in and out around the space around the heart. And you may wish to silently repeat these phrases to yourselves. May I be at ease in this moment, right now, as I am, held by the earth. May whatever blocks my heart be dissolved, as I am held by the earth. May whatever blocks my heart be dissolved. May I know joy. May I know care. May I know ease with this human body, this human mind. May I remember the ecosystems I am part of. And that everyone in their own ways wishes to be free. Sometimes this practice is referred to as samatha vipassana. Samatha being this easeful, calm, abiding. Vipassana being this insight, investigation. You could just call it your orientation as to whether I am free or not free in any given moment. So what is happening right now? What are you distracted by? What are you invested in? Without any judgment. It's quite wonderful to have a mind, but it comes with its caveats. So I'm just noticing sati, remembering, wherever it is you've caught downstream, coming back to earth, to body, to breath. But coming back in the same way that we would welcome a missing pet or a loved one. We wouldn't shout at them or scream at them or judge them or shame them. We just embrace them with love, kindness, and relief. In the same way, we evoke that kind of practice with our own attention. Sati is not is the actual remembering and returning. That is the practice. So some of you may remember the story of the leaf and its wisdom and love for the tree. I'm just going to read to you a little passage from Finding Ceremony, Dub, by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. And just let the words, as much as you can, just pass through you. And whatever is important, whatever feels pithy, just that will stick quite naturally. But in continuing to breathe into the heart, continuing to feel the earth beneath you. This is called remembering. Save the top of your head for the water. Don't let the nonsense burn it out. Cleanse with salt and coolness. Thousands of years ago, it was a spout. Place your head in places worthy. Place your hands over your heart. Bless yourself with generations. This is a start. And this is called what the coral said. Breathe. 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 Sing. Let that water move within you. Let it be you. Let every cilia dance into your healing. Let the warm salt water brighten you. Your tears, sleep. And when you dream of working, sleep again. Sleep until you dream of floating. Dream until your edges are soft. Dream until you birth yourself in water, singing with the bones of all you've lost. Dream until your breath is not from your mouth, not from your nose, but through your hair, through your skin. Dream until you claim the ocean. Breathe until you feel no need to swim. Breathe until your dreams flow out of your brain. Breathe and let them in your heart. Breathe. And we will call you again. This is where we start. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate.